What if America's hold on the Arctic and Antarctic came down to a vessel older than the first Star Wars movie? Right now, the 49-year-old Coast Guard cutter Polar Star is still plowing through 6-foot ice because its $1.9 billion replacement, the first polar security cutter, is little more than half-finished steel frames in a Mississippi shipyard. One question cuts through the frozen spray. How did the world's most powerful nation wind up staking its polar future on a ship built before VHS was invented? Cargo giants now plot summer shortcuts through what used to be year-round pack ice, and the numbers prove it. Ship entries into Arctic waters have jumped more than a third in just 10 years and have quadrupled since the 1990s. Russia has responded with a steel armada, roughly 40 heavy icebreakers, including nuclear-powered brutes, while China quietly tags along, sailing joint patrols that have skirted Alaska's doorstep. These voyages aren't eco-tours. They shadow untapped gas fields, fiber optic routes, and missile flight paths that suddenly lie wide open as the polar cap thins. Add in record methane seeps, rare earth claims, and a great power photo op every time a red flag warship noses past the Bering Strait, and icebreaking stops looking like science support and starts looking like sovereignty patrol. The U.S. Coast Guard, stuck with 2 operational polar cutters, is racing against a geopolitical clock that ticks louder with every melted mile of sea ice. But before you judge the odds, meet the battered champion still throwing punches in this frozen arena. Imagine a 399-foot, 13,000-ton bulldozer in navy blue livery, engines roaring with 75,000 horsepower as it rams sheets of ice thicker than a minivan is long. That's USCGC Polar Star, commissioned in 1976, and after her sister Polar Sea was cannibalized for parts. The last U.S. heavy icebreaker still standing. Every austral summer, she battles south from Seattle, muscling a 25-mile channel through the Ross Sea so cargo ships can feed and fuel McMurdo Station. The 2024 run took 128 days at sea, delivered roughly 20 million gallons of fuel, and saw her crew patch cracked pipes with epoxy while snow blasted the deck at -40. Age is catching up. Decades of hull flexing have warped watertight doors. Sewage lines corrode faster than they can be replaced. In March 2025, she entered the final phase of a 5-stage service life extension program, swapping out HVAC, navigation gear, and propulsion guts, work meant to squeeze a few more winters from steel, already a generation past retirement. Sailors joke the ship is held together by paint chips and coffee, but every time her red bow crushes another ridge, the laughter sounds a lot like national relief. Keeping this veteran afloat buys time for new polar security cutters that still exist only in blueprints. Meanwhile, science can't wait. So let's step aboard the younger, research-minded partner that's quietly mapping an Arctic most Americans have never seen. She's equal parts floating university and pickaxe. USCGC Healy, a 420-foot, 17,000-ton medium icebreaker that trades gun turrets for wet labs, 4,200 square feet of them, big enough to host 50 scientists tinkering with methane sensors, sea ice cores, even UAV swarms launched off her flight deck. In 2024, those labs paid off when Healy's sonar traced a 585-meter volcano-like seamount jutting from the Chukchi seabed, a landmark nobody had charted before. But science hasn't spared her the rough stuff. A transformer fire in August 2024 killed power to one propulsion bus, scrubbing her summer cruise and forcing an emergency limp back to Seattle. Crews swapped out scorched cabling, and by October she was barreling north again, determined to finish 3 delayed research patrols just as Russian and Chinese warships staged another joint Arctic show of force. Healy's resume already reads like frontier fiction. First U.S. surface ship to reach the North Pole unaccompanied, breaker of 4.5-foot ice at 3 knots, mapper of undersea volcano chains. But the line between lab coat and battle dress keeps blurring. A 2025 Homeland Security study floated bolt-on 30mm cannons and drone racks to turn her from science bus into sovereignty patrol. Lawmakers didn't greenlight the upgrade, yet the debate refuses to die. Meanwhile, maintenance demons linger. Healy blew a main motor winding in 2020, and engineers had to barge a 140-ton spare across 6,000 miles to save the season. Proof that redundancy is a myth when your spare parts warehouse is the Pacific Ocean. Still, every summer she churns north, collecting DNA traces from melting ice, policing illegal fishing, and reminding rival flags that the Arctic isn't a geopolitical free-for-all. Up next, the aging scientist soldier squares off against a future where even icebreakers might need missile hardpoints. But before we glimpse that future, let's meet the cutter meant to replace both Polar Star and Healy, and why it's already years behind schedule. Think of a skyscraper laid on its side, armored in Arctic-grade steel. That's the Polar Security Cutter, 460 feet long, 88 feet wide, displacing nearly 23,000 tons, and driven by a 45,000 horsepower diesel-electric plant that can punch through 8 feet of solid ice while towing a crippled tanker in its wake. Endurance: 90 days without resupply, berthing for 186 souls, a flight deck for H-60 helicopters and long-range drones, even a remote-controlled 30mm cannon and 50 caliber mounts. Because science vessels don't scare off gray hole intruders, but armed icebreakers do. The first of class, nicknamed Polar Sentinel inside the yard, has cleared design hurdles, secured Caterpillar generators and ABB azipods, and just won Coast Guard approval for full production, locking in a delivery target of 2030. Digital ship twins track every weld. Hull plating is twice the thickness of previous US breakers. Wiring trunks are pre-routed to snap-in mission modules ranging from hospital bays to under-ice sonar arrays. On paper, 3 PSCs would give America year-round 2-ocean coverage for the first time in history, a steel answer to Russia's nuclear fleet and China's near-Arctic ambitions. But blueprints don't break ice, and every month the Sentinel stays in dry dock. Polar Star grinds another frozen mile on engines old enough to vote twice. Next, we'll see why this promise of polar power keeps sliding deeper into the calendar, and how the price tag is starting to look like the Arctic's most dangerous crevasse.